So good morning, everyone. It seems nice to me to start with a bit of quiet and a bit of introspection for today's theme. Before I start with my talk, I would like to thank the organizers, because it's a huge honor to be here today. I've been to many Creative Mornings meetings in the past in Utrecht and also in other cities, and I was always deeply impressed by the quality of the speakers, so no pressure there. So I'm a tad nervous, but we'll see how it goes. And my theme for today is about how to start a creative movement. So if you're interested in that, then you're at the right place, I hope, for some practical tips and some inspiration. First, I should tell something about myself, not to pat myself on the back or something, but just to tell you about my journey and also for you to connect a bit with me and where I'm coming from. I was a rather dreamy child, full of questions. This was not appreciated by the teachers at all. And looking back, I can imagine why, because if you have a class of 40 kids and then one is constantly raising her hand and asking all sorts of irrelevant and maybe not even related questions, then it might be a tad annoying. So school was not a very happy place for me. I also found it very difficult to connect with the other kids. But home was. I really loved my home because there I could be alone with my cats. I loved to sing songs for them. I was constantly making up new songs for them and singing to them, making drawings for them, and origami, so paper folding. I really love. Charlotte can relate. Charlotte's a real paper nerd. So yeah, it's really nice to have paper in your hands and craft something new, a world of your own, a world of your dreams from paper. So that I liked. But also at home, I had many difficulties understanding social interactions and situations, and I often didn't understand why the other people seemed so other and so different from how I was. And when I got older, this, well, I would say became increasingly worse. I was bullied and I was excluded from school sports, to name one example. And I remember overhearing a conversation that the teacher had with my father, in which she said, yeah, we cannot have her participate because she will just run after the ball and get it. And then she will say, yes, I won, I have the ball now. And then the other kids want to play, but then they cannot because Martine stole the ball. And then, of course, they start bullying and kicking and hitting her. Yeah, that's only a natural thing. So yeah, that's why we had to exclude her. And I was like, well, okay, you can do whatever you want. So I was alone at the playground and I used to play with my sticks. And also I had this crossbow that I made myself. And I think I was rather good at stick fighting, so I always pretended to be Xena Warrior Princess. I adored Xena Warrior Princess because of the opera voice and the martial arts skills and also the kinky lesbian undertones, let's be honest. And I also loved shooting my crossbow, but that was also not a skill that was highly valued in my surroundings. So the things that were highly valued were not the things that I was particularly good at. So I drifted away a bit. I still love to draw and craft and write, but mostly at home. So yeah, school was not a happy time. And I was put in another school, which is Londschool in Dutch. So it's, it's a school for children with, well, let's say severe learning disabilities and special needs, which was also not a happy place for me. I mean, the teachers were more tolerant and displayed more empathy and the classes were smaller, so that was nice. But the other kids were maybe even more difficult to handle for me. So that was the start of my life. And now I'm a PhD student at the Center for Gender and Diversity of Maastricht University, which is something I absolutely adore. I do fan art, fan fiction, so I look up all kinds of cool artworks online and then I, well, let's say dream about it. And I write my papers and I also actively participate in many communities and set up quite a few of my own. So that's finally, we're getting there to the topic of this talk. Next to that, I'm a chorister. I'm a professional musician, as you may have heard at the beginning of this talk. I play piano and cello. I studied at the conservatory, but never became a real classical musician in the traditional sense of the word, because it just needs too much of organization. I can play rather nicely, I think, but because of the stress of traveling, because of the stress of dressing up, because of the stress of finding the place on time, I got so nervous that I didn't perform quite as well in concerts as I could do at home. But now, thanks to the internet, I really found my place in space, and I started many communities, joined other communities. I can record things at home. If I don't like it, I can do it again, or I can just have Audacity auto-correct it for me. And then I can play the music that's in my dreams and share it with people online and offline, as I will be talking about later. So, and as a chorister, many of the stress that comes with being a professional musician, don't fall, just disappears, because we're always in the same church, and we have our robes, so we have our outfit fixed. That's the thing. We have our sheet music over there, so not much that can go wrong. So that's really a nice place for me to be, and also because there I'm part of a community that's really supportive. I mean, I played at places like Hermitage in St. Petersburg and Concertgebouw in Amsterdam, and in London also. But there I often had the feeling that people were just expecting too much of me, because in their heads were the recordings of the best musicians of the world, and they do not even play themselves as good as on their recordings, as we all know. And then here I am, and I have to try to bring something to the table. Yeah, it stressed me out, and I always had the feeling that they were just waiting for me to make a mistake. This is obviously not the case, but that was the feeling I had. So being a chorister is really a thing for me. And then, to understand my social difficulties, I started studying psychology. So quite the opposite. Turns out I have autism, severe case of autism even. And I really like it. I'm really happy with my autism. I think it gives me much to be happy about, as you will hopefully also see in this presentation. But it's really an underexplored field. So that's why I started the neuropsychology, and I'm trying to incorporate many new insights into my, well, let's say, daily life and my writing and my academic activities. I do a lot of Japanese martial arts, hence the t-shirt. I thought we are amongst designers, so I can use my t-shirt here. And I have exhibitions and publications. Yeah, I used to draw just for the cats, but now it can be for anyone. And amongst others, I'm the founder of Japan Fans, which is a Dutch community, over 4,000 members now, people who are actively and creatively engaging with the culture, arts, heritage, language of Japan. We will talk more about that later. So, brief introduction, and then let's dive into it. Reverie was today's theme. From Dream to Reality was my subtitle. And my dream was to find my tribe, to have a group of people whom I could connect to and where I would feel that I belonged. So I was always in this state of between longing and belonging, and finding my way, until I thought, well, I can just start my own movement with the people I like and people that like me and the people I resonate with. And to do so, I hope to explain to you in 3 more or less concrete steps. The first is called Cyborg Mermaid, which is one of my nicknames, and I will explain to you later why that is. And it's about the fusion of the human and the machine, or how techna, which is a trick, can help the misfits fit in. Then we will talk about togetherness, as it appeared to me in times of COVID. So during the lockdown, I experienced that I really missed some sorts of togetherness. And then I started to recreate them. And it occurred to me that this is what I had been doing my whole life, although I had not actively realized it. So that was something of an eye-opener for me. And then after COVID, after the lockdown, the world opened up again, and we had to do our services in the world, so to say, try to make a positive impact, try to make a connection with the world around us, reconnect with others. And how can you do that without losing your connection to yourself? So that's the last part. Cyborg Mermaid, I have some publications about it. This is my main publication, together with my friend and colleague Emil Manipaert. In feminist studies, the figure of the mermaid has long been regarded as flawed, disabled, and less than human. So that's basically how autism is also framed. Autism is often framed as being more or less than human. So either you are severely disabled and you can do nothing and you just cannot find your way in the world, you need help for the rest of your life, etc., etc. Or you are like this genius, you can play all this music by heart, you can compose from scratch, you know like 80 languages, etc. Oh, and if you drop matches on the floor, then you can say how many. So these conflicting images were posed upon me when I received my official diagnosis. And I could link that to being a mermaid. Of course, you can link that to many prototypes from fairy tales, like Pinocchio is a good example. Pinocchio wants to be a real human, and then at the end of the story, he finds out that he was a real human. Actually, all the time he has been a real human. So that can also be, or like the ugly duckling. People often compare me to ugly duckling, and I was like, no, I was not an ugly duckling. If you think so, then you misunderstood the tale as well as my story, because I was just a beautiful little swanling having a shitty time amongst the ducks. That's something else. So the mermaid, I choose mermaid. I like mermaids, so that it's a bit of a random choice, but I still like it. And I used cyborg because cyborgization is a means of enhancing our physical selves with the aid of technology. And that's what I do. As the example of the intro music shows, I can share beautiful music with you, at least I hope that you liked it as well, the music that's in my dreams, without having the stress and having the physical complications. My autism also comes with many physical complications, so I'm not good at moving my body in a coherent way, and then I get very stressed, and then when I play the cello, like, and then I got this infection, and well, everything went downwards very quickly. But I can just be at home and record it and share it with you. So that's another way of cyborgization that's not even about fitting in, but more about standing out. But for me, autism is not a disorder or a disability or a handicap. It's a different way of being in the world. So I view my autism as a form of misfitting, and as a problem of majority versus minority. For when I'm with my autism groups, I started autism groups as well, obviously, and some neurotypical, so not autistic, allistic people visit us, they feel very alien and very strange often. And then I think, yeah, well, if many more people would have been autistic and acted in autistic ways, and we were in the majority, think about it. So it's mostly about society disabling people that are in the minority. I mean, if this society was designed to do everything flying, then we would all be severely disabled, right? So no one would get around because we cannot fly. And then we need some sort of trick, some sort of tech name, a flying machine, cyborgization to get around. I think that autism is an identity. I think that it's a culture. I think that there exists something as autistic culture. And it's also something that I am trying to nurture, I would say, in the groups I started, so that people with autism can truly be themselves, which is really difficult. For if you think about it, I cannot remember the time where I could not read. I can sort of relate to it if I see like Arabic script or so, then I can think about what it must have been like to see so many letters, but have not been able to read. But I was like 3 years old when I started to read. I cannot remember what it was to not be able to read. I can also not remember quite well what it was like to not be able to ride my bike, because it was also taught to me by my father at a very young age. At the same time, I have learned all sorts of strategies to get what I want, I would say, in this world. And if you do that long enough, and if you keep playing the role of a normal person and you pretend to be not autistic long enough, then you forget this connection, and you forget, in a sense, what you are like, because you're so used to adapting and maybe even to hurting yourself in that way. So that's an important thing that I was rediscovering during COVID. Autism comes with my hyperfocus, which is really a skill, I would say, but also something that can be trained. People think that this is a black and white thing. People with ADHD, people with autism, they have superfocus. We don't have it. Well, I don't think it's like that. I think it's morely a skill to be trained. And as I have been practicing that from this very young age, where I was doing the origami and the songs for my cats, then yeah, you can imagine that I became rather skilled at it. I have a highly detailed perception, which can be a benefit, but of course, as every benefit, can also be a pitfall. I have my creativity, intensity, systematic thinking, patience, associative thinking. And these are all, this is not because I'm a great person, so these are just things that come with many people with autism. And we often have a deep connection to one's inner world. So we are very close to our dreams and daydreams. And with my presentation, I hope to invite you to also be to get more close to your own dreams and be more in touch with your desires. You probably all know the story of the sirens. Sorry, I liked it because siren is similar to a mermaid. There are many variants of the story, actually. So we have Orpheus, and Orpheus was, if I remember correctly, just singing as loudly as he could as to overrule the siren song. But that takes a lot of brain power and a lot of focus, and you cannot do anything else. So that might not be the most optimal way. And then we have Odysseus. And Odysseus thought of 2 tricks, so 2 techniques. The first one was that he would be tied to the mast of a ship, and his crew members could not free him. Because then he would, of course, go to the sirens and probably be eaten. I'm not really sure what would happen, but in any case, it would have led to his death. And the crew members would have wax in their ears. So this is something, you could say, enhanced by technology to keep them on their path. And in the same sense, I have many, many, many tricks. For example, when I woke up this morning, I have my alarm clock telling me what to do. So get out of bed, make coffee, eat your breakfast, brush your teeth, dry your clothes, etc., etc. Then I have my app for navigation, so to come here. So many, many apps just to get around here in the world. Also, we were talking about it before the talk started, about this accent and the things. I learned English myself when I was just a little kid, but I could only read it because I learned it from these retro games, Shera games, and I always pronounced it like it were Dutch. So instead of takee, I would say takekeje or takekei. And then people, of course, would not understand me unless I started typing or writing, and then it was some sort of English, my version of English. So when I went to university, I still was far more ahead in reading and in writing than in speaking and listening, which also has to do with autism, because I have troubles moving my mouth in the right positions. And also I have sensory integration issues, which means that I hear everything on the same loudness level. So it's really difficult for me to tune in to people, and I'm always very happy when I go to the cinema because there they do it for me. And then when people on screen, they visit the cafe, then you have very soft humming on the background of the other people and very soft noises of cutlery and stuff cups coffee sounds, and you have very loud voices of the main characters that you should focus on. So that's always very nice for me. Yeah. And I learned English with an app as well. More proper English, although many people can hear that it's a fake accent, because I used apps like Duolingo, and then you talk into your phone, and then it gives you back what you did wrong. So that's how I do it, and I absolutely love Duolingo. I'm doing Mandarin, Chinese, Korean, and Japanese at the time, and I think it's brilliant. I know that there has been a lot of criticism, but for me it just works. And the same goes with other things that involve bodily movement. So I have a Retro V, and I do dances with it, and I do fitness with it. And then when I see on screen someone's, let's say, left leg, for example, I do not have to think consciously, okay, this person is now up the right leg, up the left leg, and then try to do it myself. But I learn to mirror, and this has probably to do with specific sorts of neurons that are in your frontal lobes, but that's another story for another time. So I use many tricks to fit in. And then COVID came, and I thought, why should I fit in? There was no need anymore. I could just be home alone. I was with my cat. This is a portrait of my cat. And I was turned back on myself, and I was starting to redo the things I really loved as a kid before, well, Foucault would say society disciplined me to be like a normal person. And that's where I truly found myself. And I wrote an essay about it. It was called something like The Last Taboo, Being Happy with the Lockdown or so. Lots of criticism. I can imagine, because of course I'm not happy with the global pandemic. I'm not happy that people are sick. I'm of course not happy that people are dying. I have much respect for people in hospitals. But putting that all aside, for me personally, this was a blessing. So this was what I did all day long. And I just loved it, because whereas I normally have to adapt my whole life, I could be myself, and I could just be, and I've never been more productive. So this is an invitation to you all. Just be at home. Try to be calm, try to go to your state of reverie, use some nice music if you like, and connect to, I would almost say, your inner child. Try to find yourself and try to go back to the things you loved as a kid. And from there out, I think, comes your creative power. And from there out comes the difference that you can make, the impact that you can make in the world. So, because I could not do any concerts, I made a record. So I recorded pieces just as live as you can have them, only with my cell phone and a microphone in one take, not edited. You can hear my footsteps, you can hear me coughing. It's just a soundscape from playing at home. It was originally called, this is funny, it was originally called Homestrung the Naked Guitar, but many streaming platforms did not accept the word naked. So that's why now it's called Homestrung, okay. But that's also why I do not wear clothes on the cover. People were like, what's this cover? Yeah, but, well, it was thought of and made because before I knew that streaming platforms had filters like that, okay. So I sent people my music, and I also started sending them small artworks. I started thrifting on Marktplaats, so the Dutch version of eBay, and I had these thrifted frames, and I would start collecting leaves. I always have to think for plants, because I think that it tells a lot about you, how you handle plants. So most people, if a plant or a flower doesn't thrive, you would put it in another environment, right? You would not go, oh, you're such a stupid plant, you should try harder, it's not nice, you're such a naughty plant, and you can go and stand in the corridor if you will not bloom. So if you think about it, it's really strange that we often handle plants better than we handle neurodiverse kids. So I have a thing with plants, and especially with these. These are leaves of the ginkgo biloba, and ginkgo biloba is the, well, let's say, symbol, emblem of one of my dojos, so where I practice my martial arts. of one of the groups, the communities I belong to. And it's also a symbol of friendship between the Netherlands and Japan. So I started collecting these and putting them in thrifted frames and starting them to my friends. Sending them to my friends. And they really liked it. And we felt togetherness and we felt a bond, although we could not be physically together. And then we started corresponding, sending emails, Skyping, calling. And I did a little research on how people train, how they do their martial arts. If all dojos and all gyms are closed, you cannot meet with your sensei in real life, how do you do it? And it also gave me many new connections and new friends. So my network grew, and I thought, okay, what can I do with this? Because this is a nice group of people, and many people would also like to get to know each other, and how can I organize this? And then I thought back, this is probably the most embarrassing thing I've ever shared on screen. Last month I was in the States and there I was talking about BDSM practices in medieval literature, but this is a whole new level of cringe, I think. This is a site that I made when I was, well, young, in high school, and it was just HTML and Angel Fire, Homestead, all the stuff. It was one of the first sites online that was findable for teenagers, and it was about piano playing. And as you can see, we made many pages. So we made a page about geisha, a page about dragons, a page about Chinese opera. There were, I think, over 200 pages in total, and people from all over the world could contribute. And they could send me their text and their images, and often what they did was write a song. So just like I had been writing songs for my cats, we would now be writing songs for each other, and then put it on the scanner, because we did not have musical annotation software, nor did we have good digital cameras. So we put it on the scanner, and then in Paintbrush, it was still called, I would just make it in a format that could load on connection by telephone, and then put it on the website, a friendship page. And I'm still in touch with many people from this community. So that was a nice first start. And I didn't realize it because I just started it as I loved playing the piano, and I wanted to connect with other people who also loved it. But looking back, this was like one of the first times that I found my tribe. Maybe I did it before because I had this origami club with kids, and we made this huge artwork for a school. So that was also a way of starting creative communities. And I did make some games, very elementary, very simple games for other people in our neighborhood to play with. So we had some sort of computer club, some sort of producer culture, as Axel Bruns would call it, avant la lettre. But this was the first large thing. And I remember that my father got an email that I had to pay for the site because it had way too much traffic for just a free Angel Fire website. Yeah, he was not happy. And then 10 years after that, I still really loved classical music, still do. And I found out that there were almost no nice magazines. And the magazines that were in Dutch, so my native tongue, that I could read about classical music were very highbrow. So they would start with reviews like, everyone knows this recording of this and this person, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, never heard about it. So there was this huge gap of knowledge, which was also like a hurdle for people who might like the music behind a certain commercial on TV. But yeah, and then what? So I started Encore magazine. This is issue 17. It's already somewhere near the end. But it started just on a CD-ROM in Word with 5 copies, I think, and I handed it out to friends. And they made new copies and handed it out further. And so it grew and grew and grew. And at the end, we had about 5,400 something physical copies, so printed copies all over the Netherlands and Belgium. And it also was used in secondary schools as teaching material. Yeah, so it really grew, and it was really interesting to see how such a small initiative could become such a large creative community just by finding a niche and asking your friends, basically. So I thought about these things while I was in lockdown and had much time to ponder. And then I started Japan Fans, or Japan Fans, as we say in Dutch. And we can talk about the title because I'm a huge animal lover. I'm queer and bisexual, so yeah, there are many things about Japan that I'm not a fan of. But because my PhD is in fan studies, I thought, okay, let's do Japan Fans. And I think it's a good title, easy to remember. And I started with an app group, just with the people from my martial arts dojo, because I miss them. And I also missed our connection and sharing of things like, oh, there's this exhibition, oh, it's so nice. Oh, have you read this book? It is nice. I miss the interactions. So I started an app group with like 5 or 6 or 7 people. And in about a week, people were very angry at me because this app group kept crashing their phones. And people kept adding new people and sending huge attachments and pictures and video files. And so there was this app group exploding. And I thought, okay, this is probably not the way to do it. So I politely apologized. And I started the Facebook group. And that also, yeah, hit the ground running. And then afterwards we started the website and we did some virtual expositions, we did some virtual lectures, we did virtual get-togethers for the martial arts, but also for the origami, for the language learning, everything. And then afterwards, when the lockdown opened up again, people wanted to meet in real life. So it started to become a creative community. And at this point of time, we have about 3 or 4 weekly lessons, and we have every week, I think, yeah, around every week we have a special creative event like calligraphy or origami or sushi or music, and we always have some societal relevance, some charity connected to it. For example, when we do a sushi workshop, I always go to Toko and I ask whether they want to sponsor us. And then we have lots of ingredients and we make really many sushi. And then we donate to the homeless eating small house thing. And also when we do music, we record it and we live stream it to hospitals, to a center for the elderly, like that. When we did one of the first actually cooking workshops, we invited people from the same community center that were in the Chinese group because we thought, well, maybe they will like to do some cross-cultural cooking with us. And they really liked it. But what I had not expected is that the elderly Chinese ladies did not speak Dutch or English. They basically only speak Mandarin. And I didn't speak Mandarin at the time. I do a bit now, but then I didn't. So we had a small problem. And most of the things could be fixed by just signing and, as we say, hands and feet, but not everything. And then some people from our Japanese classes started to write the Chinese characters, kanji in Japanese, on little pieces of paper. And then we could connect to the Chinese elderly ladies. And this inspired us to do a project which is called The Spirit of Kanji, or in Dutch, De Kracht van Kanji, for which we interviewed people in Utrecht who had a connection with this ancient script somehow. So some are from Korea and learned, some are from Taiwan, some are from China. And we interviewed them about their life and their time in Utrecht. And then we made an artwork with the kanji we chose together. So here are some examples of them. We had various exhibitions already, one in Neudebibliotheek, one in Stadskantoor, in Aku Cultural Center. Yeah, so I think it's really nice, and it's also creating new connections for the participants, amongst the participants. So that's cool. Oh yeah, this is a really one I'm most proud of myself. This was published in Gaykrant, a Dutch a gay newspaper, and it's an interview with a person who would prefer to stay anonymous, so I called him Tosho. And we invented actually these characters meaning bisexuality because there was not such a word yet, or at least not as we could find it in the meaning that we would like. And then we collected posters that this person told us that they really liked when growing up, and then we made a calligraphy on top of it. And yeah, the editors of the Gaykrant really liked it, so that made me really happy. And this Japan Fence project continues to keep growing. So this is me. I think this is the best picture ever taken of me, and it was taken by a 6-year-old because I was doing a concert and many children were visiting as well. So this is shakuhachi, it's Japanese Zen flute. So I started to explore Japanese flute music. Hopefully will be a publication about that in the next few months. And also sharing that online, and that way connecting with new people. I called it Fipple flutists because I usually play Fipple flutes, so the recorder, the tin whistle, flutes like that. And people liked it, and some composers dedicated new pieces to me, and other people wanted to play together with me, and I was invited to perform at larger stages, and yeah, it was really cool. And this way I could also surpass my anxiety about being a classical musician, because this is something different, and in Japanese music the beauty of imperfection is highly valued. So that was really a way for me to connect with a new audience in a new way, surpassing the things that I found to be so difficult. Then we have many artist meetup. So we have a creative group, or well, let's say group full of creative people, not artists in the traditional sense of the word, but just people who feel like they are creative and people who like to create things. And we do, this is Sumie and this is Shodo. So we do various sorts of calligraphy and drawing with Japanese ink. This one I made and it says cat. So I'm very proud of that one. And from that also sprouted my illustrated brand. So here's an example. I'm wearing another one, which is to inspire women to take up Budo, to take up Japanese martial arts, because I think that there's much benefit to be found in there. And yeah, that it's a pity that there are so many prejudices surrounding martial arts. So for example, that it is aggressive and that it's only for males who are very muscular and able-bodied and cis, etc., etc. So I wanted to do something with that. So now I have my own store, which also originated there, and which has also created a new sort of community, because I made a Facebook group for the store so people could share their own pictures of wearing the attire, and then they got into contact with each other. Oh, you have the same as I have, blah, 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 blah. So many new friendships arose there as well. And also there are many creative people that emailed me, oh, I really like this, but could you do it like that? Blah, blah, blah. So together we are developing and creating new clothing styles every time. So that's also really nice. And this is an example of one of the musics. I played the piano in Ghibli style. Ghibli is like the Japanese version of Disney. And this was my idea about what if Ghibli had made The Little Mermaid instead of Disney. I played it and recorded it, and it was live streamed in many houses for the elderly during lockdown so that they could have nice music. And there was a special item about it on Dutch Radio 4. So this, when I still thought I would become a classical musician, this was my dream, to be on Radio 4. And now, somehow, thanks to my creative community, I got there. And I also like to play this in Neude Library, so if you ever hear Ghibli music in Neude Library, come and say hello. Then you can meet my tribe and me, and we're usually there every Friday, so that's... And then, because of all these connections in creative communities and because of my research into fan art and mostly fan fiction, and of the recent developments in AI, I started to experiment and make illustrations for people to accompany their fanish writings. So, for example, this is The Witcher when he was a bit older, which was one of the stories I examined, how to say, explored for the PhD. This one is called Celebration of Hobbits. This is about the library. This is Minotaurus, which is for one of my best friends, because she really likes Minotaurus. So what I did, I had the AI generate, for example, this is wood, so I had it generate wooden structure. I'm not really sure what the exact prompt was. And then I cut and copy and paste, and I put it all together. So it starts with just a sketch, just on paper. And then I scan it in, and then I have the IE generated many things, and I glue them together as a collage. And people from the library saw it, and they really liked it. So then it made the transformation from digital to, well, let's say something in the real world or so, by having them print on canvas. And I could do an exhibition in the library. And I made a little booklet to go with it. And many people could write down their email address. So I could connect these ones as well. And now I'm trying to make artworks based upon all the requests, but I'm a bit behind. So there's also a new community starting of creative people, but more creative writers who can give new ideas to people who are more into visual arts and illustration. So that's also a nice development. And then, because Japan Fans is such a huge success, I think, this summer we also started Korea Fans and China Fans. Yeah, people have to ask questions about this, but I think, well, some people like soccer in general. So some people like Asia, or the idea of Asia, or the dream of Asia in general. And some people like Ajax, and they do not like Feyenoord, right? So I thought some people will like China, and some people will like Korea. And well, it's growing, and it's already, how to say, supporting many collaborations between creative people, and it's fostering friendship and inspiration. So I hope that it will grow as fast as and as nicely as Japan Fans did. And because of all these creative endeavors, my friend Jolijn, for whom I made Minotaur, and I started thinking, how can we give this to other people, and how can we inspire them? And together with her colleague Sander, Jolijn made a whole structure of art workshops, specifically targeted towards and aimed at people with autism or people with neurodiversity, maybe a better term. But we quickly discovered that it could have broader implications. So this summer it will be published by Garant. It's a toolbox for people with and without autism to connect to yourself, to find your creativity, to embrace your inner artist, and to start a creative movement yourself. That's the thing I wanted to end with. This is a quote from the book I'm writing that encompasses many of the things I talked about today. So if you would like to follow me, I would be very honored. And you can read my book when it's there, I hope in a month. So that's something exciting.